In the 80s, Zimbabwe was called the breadbasket of Africa. This was just after independence in 1980. Zimbabwe had the most advanced infrastructure on the continent outside South Africa. Its railways connected 6 countries and its farms fed the region. Then for 20 years, the world laughed at Zimbabwe. The whole world actually wrote Zimbabwe off. But right now, as you're watching this video, something is quickly happening. Something that most people have not even noticed. 7 presidents signed an agreement. Giants on this earth, the United States, China, the European Union, they are all competing for the same piece of land. And the country that is sitting at the exact center of it all is Zimbabwe. This is the story of a $16 billion corridor that nobody told you about and why it would change everything. To understand why Zimbabwe is suddenly important again, you need to understand one thing about Africa's economy. Africa's biggest problem is not poverty, it's not corruption, and it's not even conflict. Africa's biggest problem is that its countries cannot easily trade with each other. Right now, moving goods from the copper mines of the Democratic Republic of Congo to the ports of South Africa takes weeks. It costs more to ship a container from Nairobi, Kenya to Lagos than from Lagos to Amsterdam. The roads break down along the way. The borders are very slow and the railways are now very old. So this cost the African continent an estimated $1.6 trillion every single year in lost economic potential. But there's one corridor, and it stretches thousands of kilometers from the copper belt of DRC all the way to the ports of South Africa. That was always supposed to fix this. It passes through 7 countries. It carries over 50% of all trade in Southern Africa, and it runs directly through the heart of Zimbabwe. It is called the North-South Corridor. And the world has finally decided it is time to build this corridor properly. You might be wondering, if this corridor that runs through Angola, DRC and Zambia, where then does Zimbabwe fit? The answer is that Zimbabwe sits at the junction of 2 corridors that are inseparable from the story that I'm about to give you. There is the $16 billion Lobito corridor that connects the mineral wealth of the DRC and Zambia to the Atlantic Ocean, and there's also the North-South corridor, that is the one that runs directly through Zimbabwe from South Africa all the way to Zambia. And this is the other half of the same equation. And Zimbabwe just signed its own $2 billion railway deal with Zambia as of April 2026 that is connecting directly into this regional trade network. You cannot move goods efficiently through Southern Africa without passing through Zimbabwe. That is the geographical reality. And the reality is worth $16 billion in investment and potentially much more, far much more. The story of this corridor starts over 130 years ago. In the 1890s, British colonialist Cecil John Rhodes had a dream. He wanted to build a railway from Cape Town in South Africa all the way to Cairo in Egypt. A single unbroken railway line that would let Britain control the entire spine of Africa. He never finished it, but he started something that would outlive him. By the time Zimbabwe gained independence in 1980, the country had one of the most sophisticated rail networks in all of sub-Saharan Africa. 2 main lines connected Zimbabwe to the ports in Mozambique, the port of Beira and the port of Maputo. A 3rd line ran north into Zambia, connecting to the copper belt. Then a 4th crossed into Botswana and South Africa. Zimbabwe was literally built to be a corridor. But then came international sanctions, which brought about economic collapse, hyperinflation, corruption, etc. The railway system that once carried millions of tons of goods fell into disrepair. Trains that used to run on time stopped running at all. International investors left. The ports that Zimbabwe depended on started routing cargo around it. Mozambique, Zambia, Botswana, they all watched the Zimbabwe collapse, and then they started building alternative routes. For 20 years, the world moved on without Zimbabwe. But here's what nobody tells you. The geography never changed. Zimbabwe still sits in the exact same position at the crossroads of Southern Africa, bordering South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, and Mozambique. So you cannot build a north-south corridor through Southern Africa without going through Zimbabwe. It is physically impossible. And now the world needs this corridor more than ever. In August 2024, something happened that should have made headlines everywhere, but barely got noticed outside Southern Africa. The presidents of Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Mozambique sat down and then they signed a deal, a $6.5 billion agreement to rebuild the rail and port network connecting all these three countries. The National Railways of Zimbabwe, Botswana Railways, Mozambique Ports and Railways, all three state railway systems committing to work together for the first time in a generation. In July 2025, the Southern African Development Community, SADC, officially endorsed the North-South Economic Corridor pilot program. 7 member states signed on. International development partners joined. And the African Development Bank announced that properly developing this corridor could unlock $16.1 billion for the region and create up to 1.6 million jobs. Let that number sink in. $16.1 billion from just one corridor. And Zimbabwe is not just a participant in this plan. Zimbabwe is the bottleneck. Zimbabwe is the missing piece. Zimbabwe is the country that, if it gets its infrastructure right, becomes the logistics capital of Southern Africa. And here is why. The port of Beira is the closest deep water port to the landlocked countries of Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi. The fastest route from the copper mines of the DRC to that port runs through Zimbabwe. The Machipanda railway line, the line connecting Zimbabwe to Beira, just completed a $200 million rehabilitation in 2025. It can now handle 3 million tons of cargo per year, double what it could be before. Transit times have been cut from 18 hours to just 12 hours. But it actually gets bigger. Zimbabwe is not just a transit country, it is a resource country. Zimbabwe has among the largest platinum reserves on earth, sitting alongside South Africa and Russia as one of the top 3 platinum reserve holders on this planet, the entire planet. And in fact, Zimbabwe is already the world's 2nd largest platinum producer. The Great Dyke, a geological formation running through the heart of Zimbabwe, holds approximately 2.8 billion tons of platinum group metals. This is not a small discovery, this is generational endowment. Zimbabwe has the largest lithium reserves in Africa. By 2025, Zimbabwe accounted for nearly 10% of all the lithium produced on this planet, making it one of the most important lithium suppliers of the earth. Think about what that means. Just think about it. The world is racing to build electric vehicles, and every electric vehicle needs lithium battery. And a significant portion of the world's lithium supply sits underneath Zimbabwean soil. That is just super amazing. The Zimbabwean government recognized this, and then they decided to move boldly. Zimbabwe has been moving in this direction for years, and in 2022, they actually banned the export of raw lithium ore. No more shipping unprocessed rock out of the country. Then in February of 2026, they even went further, much further. They banned all mineral export, including concentrate, including material already sitting in transit at Mozambique ports waiting to be shipped. The Minister of Mines announced it as immediate and indefinite, effective until further notice. The Chinese companies that had been shipping Zimbabwean lithium to processing plants in China were caught completely off guard. The message from Harare was unmistakable. Zimbabwe is done being a raw material supplier. Zimbabwe is going to capture the value. This is exactly what Singapore did with its port. Exactly what South Korea did with its steel. You take the raw material, you add the value locally, and then suddenly your economy will then transform. Mining already accounts for approximately 70% of Zimbabwe's foreign currency earnings, making it the single most important pillar of the entire national economy. Imagine what happens when Zimbabwe stops exporting raw materials and then it starts exporting finished battery components, processed platinum, and refined chrome. The numbers will become staggering. The world's biggest powers have noticed what is happening in Southern Africa, and they are all scrambling to get a piece of it. Chinese companies control several of Zimbabwe's largest lithium mines. China understands that whoever controls African lithium controls the future of electric vehicles. But the United States has just woken up. In 2023, the Biden administration launched what they called the Lobito Corridor, a competing trade route through Angola, DRC, and Zambia. The US committed billions of dollars, calling it America's answer to China's Belt and Road Initiative. The European Union launched its own program, the Global Gateway, specifically targeting Southern African corridors. Suddenly, Zimbabwe finds itself in the middle of a geopolitical chess match between the world's three largest economies. And closer to home, watch what is happening here in Victoria Falls. In April 2026, the Zimbabwean government signed a $92.5 million deal to develop the Masowe Special Economic Zone right next to the Victoria Falls. There's going to be a 4-star hotel, a 5,000-seat conference facility, medical facilities, a modern commercial hub. This is not just tourism. This is Zimbabwe positioning Victoria Falls as an international business district. The kind of destination where deals get made, where investors fly in, where regional summits happen. The same government that once struggled to keep the lights on is now building a special economic zone next to one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Victoria Falls sits on the border between Zimbabwe and Zambia. It is geographically at the midpoint of the North-South corridor. If Zimbabwe develops this zone properly, it becomes the Singapore of Southern Africa, a small strategically located hub that every major player needs to pass through. Singapore has no natural resources, it has no geography, and it has no infrastructure. But Zimbabwe has geography, Zimbabwe has infrastructure. It has got infrastructure potential and some of the most valuable natural resources on the entire planet. So, after saying all these things, what does this all mean for the average Zimbabwean? For the people who are in the diaspora watching from the UK, from South Africa, from Australia, or from the US, it means the calculation is changing. For 20 years, leaving Zimbabwe was the rational decision. The economy obviously was collapsing. Opportunities were somewhere else. But corridors change economies. History has proven this. When China invested in its seaboard ports and it transformed from a poor agrarian country into the world's second largest economy in just 30 years. When South Korea built its industrial corridors and port infrastructure in the 70s, it went from being a country that was poorer than Ghana to a global manufacturing powerhouse in a single generation. When Rwanda built its logistics corridors and positioned itself as the gateway to Central Africa, it went from a country destroyed by genocide to one of the fastest growing economies on the continent. So Zimbabwe is not starting from zero. It is restarting from a foundation. It has the railway networks, it has the minerals, it has the geographic position, it has the educated workforce. And now, for the first time in a generation, it has the international attention and international investment. The North-South Corridor pilot program kicks off in 2026, and the $6.5 billion trilateral rail deal is moving. The Beira line is upgraded, the Victoria Falls is being developed, lithium and mineral beneficiation is being forced onshore. The pieces are starting to move. The question is not whether Zimbabwe will be at the center of Southern Africa's economy story. The question is, will Zimbabweans be ready to benefit from it? Are we going to be ready for this? Because corridors do not automatically lift everyone. The people who benefit most are the ones who positioned themselves early, the ones who built businesses that serve the logistics, the mining, the tourism, the processing, the ones who came home before it was obvious. I've been making videos on this channel for years, showing you the people who came home, the farmers, the builders, the diaspora investors who decided to stop waiting for perfect conditions. What I'm telling you today is bigger than any individual story that I've ever told. The world is arriving at the same conclusion that these people already reached, that Zimbabwe is not finished, that this country, sitting at the crossroads of Southern Africa, sitting on top of platinum and lithium and chrome and gold, is not a mistake. It is an opportunity that the world can no longer afford to ignore. The $16 billion corridor is coming. The minerals are already here. The geography has already been here. The only question, the only question that matters is whether Zimbabweans will position themselves to benefit from this moment, or whether we will watch it happen around us again. If this video made you think differently about Zimbabwe, share it. Send it to someone who has given up on this country called Zimbabwe, because the story is not over. If this is your first time to be here, don't forget to subscribe, because this is what we are going to be doing here. We tell the real things, the real stories that are happening in Zimbabwe and across Africa, and the stories that actually matter. We'll see you in the next one.